request Mr. Swaminathan, General Manager, Blue Dart Aviation, to kindly take up and begin the conversation with our IR guru, Mr. Padma Kumar. Padma Kumar, we all known in the circle call him as PK. Thanks, PK, for joining. It's indeed a pleasure to have you with us today. Swaminathan, over to you.
Thank you, Anand. A very good evening to all. I think Mr. Anand has given a brief introduction about Padma Kumar, PK. Very warm welcome, PK, for today's session. And I'm delighted that I got this opportunity today to take this interaction forward with you. PK is the Executive Director, Human Resources and Head CSR at Saint-Gobain India Limited. He has been associated with Saint-Gobain since 2002. Prior to this, he has held various positions in leading companies like EID Parry, the Indian Aluminium Company, where he started as a management trainee, and a short stint as a research assistant in the Personal and Industrial Relations division at IIM Ahmedabad. PK is a professional and member of top management team of Saint-Gobain. He provides leadership direction to the HR function, which has built and shaped the world-class manufacturing and research organization in India. He is responsible for conceptualizing and deploying many benchmark practices in the HR function. And he is an active thought leader in the industry and professional forums in India in the domain of HR, skills, and labor policy. Once again, a warm welcome, PK.
Thank you, Swami. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let us begin with your early days, PK. As a young professional in HR, during your stint in the Indian Aluminium Company, you had handled as many as 7 strikes, and all this without any production loss. How did you manage to go about this?
Good afternoon, all of you, and thank you, Anand. Thank you, Swami. And I know this is a session on IR Guru, and honestly, I'm not a guru, but there are a couple of learnings which I had during my stint. My first 12 years of my career has been on industrial relations or hardcore industrial relations. And I was just seeing, that out of about 20 clauses in section chapter 5, I would have done almost 13 to 14 of them during my career. And I wanted to acknowledge whatever I am today, maybe just looking back 33 years of my career, my family who has encouraged me and spared their time or spared my time, my professors actually who had instilled the confidence and instilled concept in me during my initial formative stage. I owe a lot to the HR team from whom I learned a lot and also stood by me during various times. It's in this journey we went through several challenges. I also want to acknowledge my fellow colleagues in the other function who believed in my judgment and supported me whenever we were going through crises. And my friends in the HR circuit who were listening very patiently to me when I used to give them some unorthodox ideas and suggestions. And of course, this session, Swami, had made me look back. And I wanted to acknowledge my trade union colleagues. I think more than 25 of them in state of Kerala, state of Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra, who had actually trusted me throughout my interface with them. And I had the opportunity to work with senior legal counsels, like of course, TSG, there was B.S. Krishnan, Patros Matai, Anand, and of course, his team, who had actually corrected me and shaped my thinking on many occasions. It's like a sharpener, And my seniors, of course, there are some reference to my previous company and current company, who has nudged and who has challenged and who has also supported me all through. And my friends and colleagues who have been always had their prayers for my success. But before getting into the strike, I just want to set a context or a caveat. I come from a rural upbringing. Third of the 4 siblings in my family, belief in God, strong influence of my father, and I thoroughly enjoyed my campus days. I was just above average on my studies. I was a sports person. I used to play hockey. I used to play a position of a right extreme or a right inside, and was also active in politics in the campus. In fact, the current leader of opposition in Kerala is my batchmates, and there are few such fellows. So why this is important is when you face IR, the belief in self, because when you are in a battleground, what do you trust? You trust yourself, you trust your boss who may be 1,000 kilometers away, and you trust God. This is what you do. So I was in a state, you were referring to my stint in Indian Aluminium Company, and which was going through a very, very severe power shortage. And, for aluminium manufacturing, that is a very important area. So we had to lay off. So we had a bit of an hostile environment at that point of time from the Kerala government also. And there was a section 10B imposed. There was a forceful withdrawal of power by the electricity board. We have 2 feeders. And so we invoked section 25M, and it was like a table tennis match with all the 25 sections in play, 25C, 25E, 25M, whatever. So I think what is required is complete understanding of the place, complete understanding of the law. In fact, there was if you need to be really powerful, you need knowledge, and you need knowledge of the labor laws. And I feel sometimes a bit sad because many of our HR colleagues are missing that. So I had a strike. I had 7 strike, and I was pretty young. So the unions were also saying every strike we were going successful without a loss of production. And the union decided that means there is somebody who is masterminding all this, and that is PK. So let's catch PK's area. So we should go for a strike in the canteen. And my 28 employees were instigated, canteen employees were instigated to go on strike because of a lower crew on a particular day. And we had done a lot of flexibility. So my boss called me and asked, so I believe there is a strike in your area. What are you planning? I said, no, I was anticipating this, so I have made some alternate plans. He said, you buy some bread, butter. I'm talking about 1,000 employees company. And bread and something and give. I said, no, I'll give them full-fledged lunch. And so he asked me, how do you do it? I said, I have planned it with a person who prepares food for marriage, because I have told him I will give him 2 hours notice and I need 600 lunch. He has agreed. And to my unfortunate, on that particular Monday, the person with whom I have contracted, he had gone to Sabrimala. And thereafter it was a tension, but got his brother to come into action. By 11:30, normally our canteen opens. So 11:30, everybody came to the canteen, no food. But 11:40, the vehicle carrying the food from outside came, and there was food provided. But the union decided that we will go for a sacrifice strike. And they did not have lunch on that particular day. But after 1 hour, the same union leaders came to me and said, sir, what are you going to do with that food? I said, I will give it to the piggery. He said, no, sir, don't give. We will have the food in the night. At 4 o'clock, they called off their strike. And so I always feel when it comes to the industrial relations, one, you need to be fair. And second, you need to be firm. And many things will fall in place. I was referring to, when you play cricket, you play a front foot or a back foot. If you play front foot and if you are fair, many things will fall in place, Swami. So that was a very strong opening question from you.
Mr. PK was very humble to say that he is not a IR guru. But friends, I think we have started getting the learnings from him. Trust in yourself, trust in God, and trust in the team are the key for success.
Yes.
And to be powerful, we need to have the knowledge and be fair and firm in the approaches. That's great, PK.
Yes.
So, can you share your learnings from your IIMA Ahmedabad as a research assistant? What prompted you to take this shift from industry to academics and then back again to industry?
Honestly, I joined Indian Aluminium Company from the campus, and I would say that is one of the best companies. That was the time where the Business India, there was an advertisement for research associates and research assistants in IIM Ahmedabad. I just applied casually and I was called for an interview. I went there and I was in industry for about 10 months because I have been moved away from academics. So I went there and I saw everybody learning, everybody studying before going for the interview, and they were all studying research methodology. I was also, because I'm away from the research for quite some time, and I entered the interviews and there were 7 professors from IIM Ahmedabad sitting there, including the dean. And the first question to me was on the Industrial Relations Bill of 1987 by P.H. Angma. And I was so thorough with that bill. I knew where the comma full stop used to be in that bill. And subsequently, my entire questions were centering around the IR bill. And they were very impressed. In fact, I could see the dean also saying, yeah, this is very interesting. I think he's very deep, etc. So my intention was to understand what happens in a so-called premier institute, nothing more than that. But once I reached there, I liked the ambience and it was curiosity. I worked on various interesting projects. In fact, one, I was lucky enough to have worked with reputed professors like Arun Monappa or Jerome, Professor N.R. Sheth, who was the director, and he had a lot of case studies on industrial relations. That is the time where we used to work on concept, and this is some interesting learning which I went through. HR will be provided a concept. How we can actually grow that concept to a certain action is entirely left to us. So when I joined that IIM, my job was to prepare the course material for the students, course material for the participants who come from the industry as a part of the MDP program, and also do a class participation. In fact, I was remembering, our finance secretary, he was actually a student of mine when I was in IIM Ahmedabad. But more important, I should say, it gave me an opportunity to work with very interesting projects. One of my projects was training need identification of Fertilizer Corporation of India. And it was a lot of data collected. About 5,000 people were interviewed by 3 professors. It was an interview schedule, and I was given 2 gunny bags of questionnaires, and not questionnaires, interview schedules. So I went through each, I prepared a very nice case, very nice report. And at my age of 25, I was actually teaching those professors on about this project. I also had an opportunity to work with labor management consultative mechanism between an Indian company and a Japanese company during that period. So I had interviewed Lakanpal National, which was a Japanese company. And we also had an interesting opportunity, Swami. There was a managing director who turned a union leader, and a union leader who turned a managing director. Oh. And we had an opportunity to invite both of them and present them to the MDP participants, and learned how they did transit. In fact, the union leader, whatever he has objected as a union leader, when he became the managing director, he implemented the same. The managing director, whatever he had actually, maybe lack of empathy, could not agree to the union leader, he was asked to revisit. So the theme, the learning for me was empathy. I think that is where the differentiator and concept, and how do you really have empathy and work on that. In fact, your question was, why did I shift back to the industry? I was not looking
Yes.
at an academician role. My curiosity was, I want to find out what was so different in the Premier Institute. We won the best area award. And I also had an opportunity to write a case study on trade union recognition from the experience which I gained in Indal, which is again a registered document there.
That's interesting, PK. So coming back to your industrial experience.
Yeah.
So as a young HR manager, you would have definitely had resistance from the union leaders on various issues. But at the same time, you would have had to deal with people within your own team as well as within the management team who are senior to you by age and posing the resistance as well. So how did you manage to overcome these internal resistances?
See, for me, before I get into the field, I mentioned to you I was a hockey player. So before I get into the field, I'm always conscious about what is my goal, what is my position in which I have to play, and what am I supposed to do. So even in HR, when I was taken again back to Indal as a head, all my reportees were maybe 5 to 7 years senior to me. And I was asked very specifically, is that issue for you? I said, it's not an issue. Honestly, it has not even registered in my mind. So for me, what I do is, for me, HR is a combination of science and art. And that is what I perform. It is like you perform in a Bharatanatyam, whether it is you need a platform. You don't look at whether it's a senior artist or a junior artist. You have that platform. So what I do is the methods and tools of a science, and execution is the art. So this is what will give the desired results. So my thinking would always be, how do I approach, what is the right method, and do I have the right tool? For example, I always use this quote. If I'm invited to your house, Swami, as a plumber, and I come to your house without a tool, will you respect me? So that you are actually respecting me as a plumber for me with the tool. In the absence of the tool, you don't respect. Similar is the case for an HR person. So HR person with the tool can actually make any concept work very, very different.
So interesting. HR is a combination of science and arts. Great. So science is for the methodology and art is for the execution.
Absolutely.
Very nice, very nice. So on the VRS, I'm curious to know from you. VRS is not that easy task, but you seem to have had a successful rollout of VRS in tough terrains like Kerala and Pune. So can you please take us through your journey in the rolling out VRS?
See, sometimes, the HR has to play the Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, all the three roles. So it is not a choice which you have. If you are sitting in the chair, you have to perform. So in my role, I had to introduce VRS in 3 states and a closure in 2 states. And typically VRS, I had to do it in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Maharashtra, and 5 factories in all the places. So VRS is not easy. But if I look in retrospect, I see it is a job like a salesperson. So you are actually, you have to sell, and you have to bring your entity into a viable unit or bring down the working capital cost of the company. So what was important, or what made me successful, is in all the 3 places, I had to very attentively listen to the employees. union representatives, employees, absentees who are absent, the family members of some of the people, and understand very precisely what the employees want. Because what do we do as a seller? We have some money. So once you listen, we need to conceptualize whatever as an input and see what a scheme can bring in as an desired end result. So developing that scheme is very important. How do you structure it, etc. So earlier we used to have the advantage of taking to the income tax commissioner, getting it okayed. Today the income tax says that what we have anyway given in the act, you follow the scheme. Most important, everybody is successful in developing a scheme, but thereafter selling that scheme to the employees, getting that application from that guy's pocket to your hand is what matters. In all the places, in fact, one of the last example in Maharashtra, where we had to do a VRS in a factory, automotive glass manufacturing factory in Pune, and we had 173 people. So I had committed to my boss in a very weak moment some 70 people reduction, but he anchored that number, and he didn't forget. So we introduced the scheme, and the last day of the scheme, which was 29th of December, 28th of December, I had 6 applications against my committed 70. And my boss was very upset. You know, he was generally firing all over. I was also part of it. I had to ask my boss, do you have anybody else other than me and my HR guy? So he was silent for some time. He said, no. I said, why don't you leave it to us? If you have anybody better than us, you would have given to them. But since you don't have, you have to trust us. And he didn't know what to say because it comes from a very young guy to him. He left it to us, and on the last day, I had 116 other applications other than the 6. I ended with 123 in a place where I have a very strong union leader. So it matters as to how you take them into confidence. You're not getting their signature. It is not what matters. Are they mentally aligned to you is what matters. Do they trust you? So the learning for me was at every stage, at the listening stage, at the scheme making stage, the deployment stage, be fair. Even if one fellow comes and says, I want to withdraw my application, honorably give it back to him. And it is not that we are going to chase that individual for a large number. That was my biggest learning.
Very nice, very nice. So gaining the trust of the union leaders and the workers is the key.
Absolutely.
So coming to your PARI days, you would have had the opportunity to work with industry giants in HR and IR. So as a young professional, how did you manage to get the confidence of the leadership team in rolling out initiatives and win over them?
PARI, I joined again very differently. Again, the Business India, which I read, had an advertisement for research officer, industrial relations in Murugappa Group. So I joined to work with Mr. K.V. Ramachandran, who was the boss of Mr. Rambabu. And he is the person who was instrumental in turning around the Murugappa Group. So he wanted to document the entire turnaround of Murugappa Group, and he wanted a research person. So I was readily available in IIM, and that's how I joined. After few months, I think his health was not good, and he could not pursue it. So I was interested to Mr. Rambabu, not knowing who he was. And Rambabu is a person who has not interviewed me also. So he also doesn't know me as a candidate. So he's given.
Okay.
So there was always a bit of a skepticism, because assuming that you interview and take somebody, you always own that person as a candidate till you come in. So I was interested to Rambabu, and I worked with him. There were several areas where we had difference in views, but I should say once you work in Paris, you are actually germinated on a rock. It is that is what I would say during that period of Rambabu, KV Ramchandran, Kannan, and all that. The strength, the difference is, in fact, you made me think as to what is this difference in EID Paris at that time. You are challenged. You are challenged on your strength, and you are not challenged on your weakness. And that is one thing which I have experienced in that place. During my tenure in both EID Paris, Paris Confectionery, Carborundum at that time was part of EID Paris, and subsequently I had my second stint also in Murugappa Group. In IR, getting back the prerogative of management from the union was one of the important things which I could do at that time in 91 in Paris. We had a very strong union who used to determine at that time when to work, whether to work, what variety to make. Everything used to be decided by the union. From that situation, we changed it that the management used to tell, tomorrow is a Bandh, why don't you compensate early? So that is the way we used to have the turnaround. So it brought in not only working on a Bandh day, flexible working in the shop floor, reduction in the growth rate of dearness elements. If you put a graph, bringing in a new entrant dearness, new entrant scale, many things which we did for making that location more viable.
So I think you have thoroughly enjoyed your stint there in Paris in terms of
absolutely
you being challenged, and you are able to bring in a lot of value add to the table as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and one good thing in Murugappa Group at that time, in fact, that's a time where M.M. Murugappan or N.V. Subaya was the chairman, and he doesn't expect any of us to stand with folded hands before any regulatory person or others. And not that I had a very strong union leader called C. Govindarajan, and he was 82 years and I was 27 years. When I opened my mouth, he'll say, shut up. And I had the urge to win over him, and he used to call me "Ya Malayalathan vandirukku." So, so one day I did something very non-standard. He had to go to CITU Congress in Calcutta. So I asked him, sir, what will you talk in such meeting? I will talk many things. Why are you asking? He said, I will talk on sugar decontrol, molasses decontrol. So I just volunteered to him. Sir, I can prepare a nice paper on molasses decontrol and give it to you. So he was very skeptical. He gave me a skeptical look. He said, okay, Kodu. So I prepared for about 1 week. I prepared 3-page note on what are the implications of molasses decontrol. I sent it to him. He made a presentation based on that in the National CITU Congress in Calcutta. It was very highly applauded, and he came back and he acknowledged, and that was so great of him for a junior guy like me to come and compliment, and he also gave a very nice farewell, touching farewell.
For the interest of the listeners, I should say that Mr. PK was in the Paris confectionaries at that time. He was not in sugar when he did this study on molasses decontrol. That's nice. And coming to your Saint-Gobain experience, can you please tell us how you have gone about de-risking the skill crunch at Saint-Gobain?
So I should say, Swami, we are slightly different company in Saint-Gobain. I always use this word. We are not a company who says that you give me a person with nice attitude, we will develop him. We are not a company. We are a company which believes that you bring a technical person, technically competent person, we will provide him a career. So large portion of the interviews are focusing on what is that technical skill which we are going to receive by taking this candidate into our company. And I often differentiate in my mind what is strategic, what is operational, and what is a task. And for me personally, I believe that strategic initiatives needs continuous fine tuning. And for me, the skill development center in Saint-Gobain, where we bring people from the outsource, train them as a part of our CSR. We do earlier we used to do a 21-day training at the cost of the company. Today, I think it is about 14 days. End of the 14th day, that trained person can say, "Thank you for training. I want to go and work in Hyundai." So be it. We are happy as long as we have provided a safe industrial worker, and even if he is working for another company. So that has been our mindset. But when it comes to skills, we have not been very selfish. We look at continuously honing the technical skill. And I have learned over the years, the more focus on technical skills you provide, the less distractions you will have on other matters.
Okay. So more focus on technical leads to less distraction on the other areas. That's great. So when you said that as part of CSR, you had started the skill development center. We now hear this ESG becoming the buzzword in the industry and all across.
Yes.
So the environment, social and governance perspectives. So where does Saint-Gobain lie in this space? And as head of CSR, how do you contribute in this space?
So this ESG is environment, social and governance. And in my view, that is a concept which is picking up. And I'm sure it is going to have much, much more impact. ESG is not from a CSR point of view. ESG is very important from a HR point of view, social goodwill. For example, when a cow near a village adjacent to our factory was eating a paper which had a logo of Saint-Gobain, somebody took a photograph, cow eating Saint-Gobain paper. And that was in the front newspaper. And let me tell you, me and some of our guys had to spend one full day in that village to figure out how did that actually paper come there. Means there is some issue with the system of dispatch or system of disposal of. So we had focused on, so environment protection is one of our prime area. For example, you are bringing in a lot of bottled water, you're bringing in a lot of plastics. So on one side, we provide CSR machines under the CSR for crushing of plastic bottles. And the other side, we bring in more plastic bottles. So we have to find the right balance to prevent that. The G word is very important. S is social. We are actually doing quite a lot of things. Many of my HR colleagues are also doing it. But when it comes to governance, I wanted to appeal. I've been working for the last 33 years. I've been responsible for about 7 or 8 states. I have not paid 1 rupee bribe in my career. And for me, that is very important for future. Maybe I'm in a multinational company which has got the antitrust law of Europe, or if it is an American company where the Foreign Corruption Prevention Act. But let me tell you, this is going to settle. And HR, I felt very sad when I had to interview an HR person and ask him, who is the factory inspector you deal with, and what is the equation you have? He took a rate card and showed me. He said, "This is what I do." I said, "Are you not ashamed? And how will you do it if you join my company?" He said, "Last 13 years, sir, I've been doing it." I said, "No problem. You tell me you think over the weekend, do you want to continue or you want to change? If you have to change, you have to go back to the same people and say, 'Sir, I can't pay.'" He called me on a Sunday and he said, "Sir, I thought through, I discussed with my wife. I want to continue in my current company because it will be difficult for me to come and go back to the same government offices." So my appeal is, it is so important for us to believe. Recently, there is a finance person who joined from another cement company working with us for 6 years. He said, "Sir, honestly, I never knew we can run a company without paying money." And it is so important for HR to believe that it is possible. And that is what I'm actually wanting to appeal.
That's great. That's great. Working in such organizations will be dream for many HR professionals actually, to work on this space of governance, working on ethics and things like that. That's great. So moving on to a little bit of HR vertical. So I am interested to know about how have you gone about building leadership team and especially the successors in the organization.
See, I should say I've been lucky to have got a leadership role as early as my 27 years. I've been independent as a factory HR head. And what you inherit is actually what you give. So I have always felt that people, HR professionals who are confident of themselves, should take up independent role even at a younger age. And I encourage, and it is like swimming. If you go around the swimming pool 10 times, you won't learn swimming unless you jump into the pool. Because the heat of the HR head's chair is only understood when somebody sits in the chair. Because just because I smile, I don't, people think that I don't have any tension or stress, etc. But I don't think I have to show my stress to all the people. So it is so important because you are dealing with, you're not dealing with machines, you are dealing with people, and you are dealing with difficult people. There are occasions where you have to give very strong feedback. In fact, sometimes when I have to give a feedback to my boss, which is unpleasant, uh, he responds, he reacts. And so I had to be cool. I had to be cool saying that, boss, there is a message, there is a messenger. Which one you want to take, it's your choice. So I spent time in coaching some of my colleagues, giving confidence to colleagues, sharing some of my stories to colleagues. But I try to my best to appeal. I'm sure there are many of them would pick it up and then make a career out of it.
So coming to this young generation which is there now,
Yeah.
so what do you think is the expectation of the present millennials for the workforce of today? They got everything they want. They are not behind money. They have better smartphones than what we do have, and they are well informed. So what is their expectation really?
See, I've also been very curious to find out what they need, and I have some millennials at home. So what they need to know is why are they doing what they are doing? This is one I have understood. They want to know the impact of what they are doing. They are not looking at tasks or repetitive tasks. They want variety. And recently, I have also seen much more alignment. They need to know the purpose why they are doing something. And what if the end result is not sustainable? In fact, why they want to do is they don't want disappointment. They don't want to bring in a disobedience. They want to know, for example, Saint-Gobain, in my background, you can see making the world a better home. Saint-Gobain has actually thought through across the world, why do we exist as a company? We are a company which has been in existence for 350 years. And is it only for making money or is it for something else? So Saint-Gobain, across the world, 15,000 people participated, and they came out with this statement: we are in existence because we wanted to make the world a better home. Today, many of the young people are wanting to understand what is this all about. And when we talk to them about sustainability, when we talk to them about a planet which they want to live in better, they don't have to walk around with a mask, etc. There is a lot of interest. But what I have also understood, that they want space for themselves. They don't want any thinking boundaries. They want to relate. They want to relate with their colleagues not by waiting for them to come home. Pick up the phone. They want to chat at 2 o'clock in the morning and reach out. And they wanted to do it at their own pace. So I think companies will undergo a change in their own culture, in their own systems to accommodate these millennials.
True. In fact, several organizations have started working on giving the learning platforms through the digital platform where people can learn at their own pace and own time.
Correct.
So I think companies are gearing for handling
Absolutely.
such millennials.
Absolutely.
So,
Only thing is, Swami, they want to put the practice what they have learned. So today somebody is going through a Coursera course. At least in the next 3 months, they want to put it in practice. If they don't get an opportunity in your current company, they want to go.
they get disappointed.
Yes.
So when we talk of this digital world, we say that we are well connected. But the one point which you emphasized on empathy.
Yeah.
How do we merge these two in the present digital world? Are we missing on the human perspectives? What is your take on this?
See, in the digital world, that you can connect on a contractual way to perform certain tasks. You can connect on an emotional plane to connect to other people. So there is a casuality in this. In a non-digital world or a less digital world, an interpersonal issue which was changing from a emotional state of happiness to a fear or an anger or a sorrow. There are these stages in which we pass through. In a digital world, you take the phone and throw, it is over. So that emotional stage is actually ruptured. And that is where people sometimes are becoming hysterical, which was not seen earlier. And how do you handle this hysteria within the family, within the organizations, is something which is very difficult. The bosses are under pressure. And is the boss transferring the pressure directly down to the employee? This is very, very, very important.
Okay. So I think we are coming to the fag end of the session. One maybe last question from me. You have handled several interventions in your career in the last 33 years. Which is the one that you think is very close to your heart, and why?
It is not. It is not one. I should say, it is one. Creating a culture of grow from within is something which I have been very closely practicing, and I strongly believe in that we need to generate young people who can actually grow. And fortunately, I'm in a company where my boss has joined in 1980 from the campus. He's here. We have several managing directors who have grown. So one of the most important thing I believe is grow from within as a culture, linked to various subsystems of leadership development, of at the bottom level learning, learn while learn program which we do for the underprivileged, the skill development center. So it is not just one; it's a combination. It's like a wheel of life. There is a wheel which has got several spokes.
Correct. Yeah, I think I understand. It's very difficult to figure out one thing. Yes. That's true. So from the audience also, there is one question which I also thought I will ask you. It's basically on the young HR professionals.
Okay.
They are more inclined towards the HR vertical and less inclined towards the IR side. What would you advise them?
See, I always consider this bottleneck is on the top of the bottle. So this IR and HR is actually a human creation. In my organization, we do not make such a differentiation, be it this company or my previous company. First, I break that mindset. Wherever you have people, whether it is a contract workman or an apprentice or an entry level person or junior person, we see them as a simple human being, and that is very important. I feel sad when some of the HR people whom I see are making this distinction between white collar and blue collar. In fact, I find that such a distinction is not correct. As long as we see them as a set of competencies, set of people who can perform many things which you cannot perform, I think we are a different world altogether. I always see, Swami, we were lucky to have been born in very good families and get an education which was very appropriate and which has brought us to here. We deal with about 45,000 beneficiaries under my CSR role. None of them are very bad, but they are born in a family which is not giving them adequate opportunities. And that is what I would appeal to my HR colleagues. One, do not categorize a person by saying that he is white collar, blue collar, HR, IR, others. I think that is one of the biggest failures. Any knowledge is important. If the labor law is one element of the knowledge, like your international employees, or like your learning and development, or like your comp and ben, see that as one of the spoke for you for your development. And it is, in fact, when somebody got up and said, I have been working on 12 years in a IT company, I don't have any labor laws in my company. I was shocked. I was shocked. And I think we need to have that awareness creation. We will try to do our best through various forums and activate it.
True. In fact, many of the young professionals, they don't keep themselves updated. They don't go through the acts and they don't see what's happening around them. I think people need to focus in this area as well.
Now that is because the case, I think if you bring in the case study method of learning, and even I would suggest that in the TSG forum, we should actually put one case study, one para, so that they understand what law to refer. So law we prescribe and law what we refer are always different. In fact, many a times when we learned many things in INDAL to execute various actions on section 25, we were not prescribed, we learned it because we wanted to get certain things done right.
True. So I think, Anand, we should see how we can take this forward in the upcoming sessions, bringing about case study methodology for the audiences to ponder upon. There is one question, PK, from the audience. Can you enlighten about the skill matrix and assessment at Saint-Gobain? How have you gone about implementing the same?
See, what we do, we have, we make glass. So for us, our core is manufacturing glass and glass property, material science, ceramics. And then we do a lot of cutting, which is automated. So PLCs, robotics, etc. So our skill matrix are station wise, and we fragment the job into what is the knowledge required for the job, what is the skill required for the job, and we classify it in 4 stages. So we can actually have not only an assessment, also give a progressive way to develop people in each of the skill. Okay. And it is done across. Currently, we are also automating it with a program called Pro Skills.
Pro Skills, okay. There is one interesting question from one Mr. Manigandan. So, after the end of this pandemic, how are you managing work from home and return to office program to your employees? Do you have any such program at Saint-Gobain?
Yes, it is an important question. There are multiple views. Saint-Gobain, many of them feel that all of them should come back and it should be back to normal. Saint-Gobain believes that we will not be going back to the old method of working. Saint-Gobain believes that we have learned certain things which are new, which we thought are not possible. We are able to connect at whatever time with various people, Zoom or Teams or whatever. So there will be a hybrid way of working, and we will be empowering the respective functional heads to decide what part of their job, who in their team would like to have a hybrid way of working. And so that would continue. We will also look at, is there a different way of engaging people? Not necessarily our old method of monthly and 8 hours, etc. if somebody is able to contribute like a gig, so we will bring in a definition in those areas as well.
That's wonderful. So hybrid work environment where the functional heads would take the lead and decide how many of their team members they need on a given day.
Absolutely.
So there is one question from Mr. Anadure. So he asked, what would be the HR challenges in the Industry 4.0 era in India?
Oh, it's, I would not say it as a challenge, Anadure. I would say it is a huge opportunity. When we also operated in an era where there was no mobile. And today with the mobile, we are actually seeing opportunities as coming in. So Industry 4.0, if I am a maintenance person, till yesterday, I used to wait in a room to see when the machine will break down. So today what we do is we are seeing that there is a preventive maintenance schedule, and I am addressing, tomorrow it is going to be predictive. And not only predictive, we will know when those machines for the vibration analysis or the condition monitoring or the energy management systems. So the same maintenance team who used to wait earlier will now be learning these things. They will know what is the predictability of a machine failure. So I think shop floor will undergo change. The pyramid will actually shrink, and there will be less number of people controlling. I recently saw a person when I went to one of the function, 74-year-old person. He told me, I am controlling 40,000 freezers of Cadbury's across the world from his house in Madipakam.
Oh, that's great.
74-year-old person.
So age is no bar. That's great. That's great. I think PK, it was very wonderful and enlightening session from you. Thanks for your time. Thanks to TSG and CEO for giving this opportunity to interact with this great gentleman. We have had a lot of learnings today, PK. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, PK. Thank you, Swami. Thanks a lot for everyone for joining. Please do join us for the next session on 30th April. Until then, stay safe. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, Anand.
Yeah, see.
Thank you, Anand.